The Own Your Intuitive podcast is for the creatives, spiritual entrepreneurs, and light workers in the world. The shining ones who have been told to dim their light and stop believing in magic. I say screw that. The time to rise is now. To bring your gifts out into the world in a big way, creating a business that feeds your soul and your bank account. You are a magical being with the potential to change the world, one human at a time. The time for you to own your intuitive is now. Oh my goodness, my magical humans. Today I am sharing an extra special guest, someone I don't exactly know per se, but I'm excited to get to know on a deeper level because she comes highly recommended for my executive assistant, who just happened to have met her in a little collective or community of people talking about something that you guys know is super important to me. This was a gathering, a collection of humans that were talking about wellness of our kids who suffer with mental health issues. And so with this episode, I am so honored for the introduction and for the opportunity to share Laurel Crossley with you guys. Laurel. It's like, it starts with like a Laura, but it's an EL. So then it's like Laurel. And then so thank you for coming on the podcast today. I'm so excited to share you with everyone.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And, it was one of those random
wink, wink
situations that happened where, I opened my mouth and magic happened. And I think oftentimes, especially being a spiritual being, we are, we hold things in close to our chest because of maybe how people have viewed us or talked to us before. When we say something that comes right from divine intervention, universe, people say, hey, wait a minute, what? There isn't a marketing strategy or a business plan associated with that content. And so it was nice to open my mouth and say what I really wanted to do and have the invitation to come here today. Yay!
Which I think is really powerful because in my team of, unicorns that I work with, including Corey, who met you, right? We are all open and tapped into receiving the divine guidance and knowing and trusting whatever we receive. So I can only imagine what it felt like for both of you to experience each other in that way, in a way where you were both open and it was like, yes, clearly this is a thing.
And it's funny because the meeting was set up. The congregation was set up for one intention, and then the person who was spearheading the congregation said, I'm totally not doing what I thought I would do. We are going to sit here, and Corey and a couple of other people put chairs in circles, which is a powerful, healing opportunity when you have a circle. And we basically sat and chatted. And it was at the end that Corey said, I have a podcast that I think you need to be a part of. Are you open to that? And I said, heck to the yeah. And as I was just sharing before we started recording, I was challenged to look for podcasts upon which to appear or be recorded.
It's so interesting because I just want to share this with everybody too. It's really in the gift of releasing the how, right? Like it's that power of just completely surrendering to that message. Just get yourself on some podcasts and not thinking, well, how am I going to get myself on all the podcasts? What does that look like? How many things do I need to do? Where do I, and just being present.
Mm-hmm. I think that's hard for a lot of people to be fully present and in the moment because you're always thinking about your ulterior motive, whether that is more connections, more contacts, business. And so what happens is you're so caught up in that you're not actually focusing on the humans, or maybe they're not humans, fairies, unicorns, mermaids, whomever they are in your presence, and really engaging. And it's not just about engagement. It's about that energetic engagement. It's about opening your heart space to, opening yourself up to be mindful and present, but also opening up your heart space. I only do, and I'm sure you're sure as shooting without even knowing you, I only do things out of love.
Cheers. Yes.
Wait, cheers. Shh. This is not a glass of gin. It is bubbly water. I have to clarify. I like to drink out of glass jars.
I hear you. We have those too. But Laurel, just because everybody's like, wow, these girls are having a great like powwow, because these are important conversations, right? They like, I know that we're just having what feels like a really candid moment here, but you guys, this is the piece. This is the piece of opening and seeing the world through a different lens and an opportunity for expression and expansion and growth in a way that you maybe don't realize is available to you, but is available to all. But Laurel, what is it that, you do in this world with your human body at this time?
Well, I show up.
Yes.
I laugh a lot, but really my focus, I've had a really interesting sort of career span. I started off as a life coach, probably close to 30 years ago, before my daughter was born. And
people did that back then? Just kidding.
yes, it was a brand new venture. It came from California, and all these people were saying, hey, Laurel, you're not a career coach, you're a life coach. You're actually helping people with their lives. And I went, what's a life coach? And so I didn't get a designation. So here I am. I had a degree from Brock University in child studies. And really my goal was to become a teacher. That didn't work out. I applied to Teachers College about 7.8 trillion times, and each time I was rejected, and I was heartbroken. And I really didn't know what to do. So it was my mother who suggested to my father that maybe I pursue adult education as an opportunity. So I did that and started working in the career development field. But I was working for an Aboriginal organization in Brantford area. And I learned a lot about the connection to mind, body, and spirit. And, those Aboriginal teachings, those Native teachings, and it really struck me as, well, this is it. You don't need anything else. What else do you need? So I started working with primarily women who were participating in the program, and I felt compelled to work with mothers. I had a company called Optimum, Living Your Optimum Life, and I did outings for mothers and teachings for mothers, but my real passion was working with children. So I flipped my coaching, which was my original intention, but everybody told me I couldn't do it. I listened to everybody else. Who's going to want to have you work with their children? Children don't need life coaches. So I started coaching children, specifically in the realms of not sleeping, high anxiety, et cetera, something that I struggled with, as did my children. And so I made it my mission that I was going to support the children. So I went from mother to child. And then I went, as the children were talking to me, they said to me, there are people that don't believe in me. And I went, I stroked my beard of wisdom. And I thought, you know what? They're right. As I believe, children come to this world fully prepared on being the human that they are delivered to be. We as adults are to support that journey, not shift that journey, but support that journey in a loving, kind, thoughtful, really paying attention and being mindful to the child. And it struck me that time after time, I heard not only from children, but from parents as well, or adults that work with children, that it's a real struggle to understand how their energy influences and interacts with children's energy. So I had a vision a few thousand years ago to start something called the Children's Wellness Conference of Canada. And so I started with that. Then so I'm still running those conferences, and they will be expanding around the globe. But my mother passed away this year, very suddenly and very dramatically. And she's come to visit a few times. My dreams, things like that. But her passion for children and children's wellness really was the start of my conversations about what we can do as adults to better support the children. And so I realized that my mission was not just the children's wellness conferences, but it's more about children's wellness internationally. And so I gave birth to a new organization called children'swellnessinternational.com. It's in the throes of its infancy, so I'm still nursing, changing diapers. But beautifully, it's evolving into this magnificent organization, which the three pillars of wellness that I want to focus on internationally with children are enough food, a home, and water, clean water to drink. And those three pillars really are, we can't support our children if they don't have a house, if they are not eating, and if they don't have clean water to drink. And that is something that affects every single nation around the world, including Canada. Mm-hmm. And so that's my mission. And I will do that in a variety of ways. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, there's so much to go back to, things to say. But what's really fascinating is no word of a lie. I woke up this morning and I told my husband, we're kind of watching a show on Netflix called Jane the Virgin right now. And there's this guy named Raphael, and he, inseminates Jane, who was a virgin, and then his ex gets pregnant with his baby. Anyway, I woke up and I actually said to him, I said, weirdest thing, I was pregnant with Raphael's baby in my dreams last night. And it's very interesting that our conversation has been about birthing this baby out into the world with you. And so I'm starting to feel very connected to you before I talk to you, Laurel.
Were you in my head?
Clearly.
That happens a lot. Actually, when I'm putting my makeup on in the bathroom or I'm showering, that's when all my messages for the people that I'm connecting with come in.
Oh my God, I'm a bathroom person too. Oh yeah. Happens in the bathroom for me.
Oh yeah. I will text. I have a colleague. I laugh. I go, oh, I just had this idea. She said, are you on the toilet? Yes.
Well, there's so many things that I want to kind of touch upon here, because you clearly have a great depth of spirituality to you, like a true connection. And you had mentioned something before we hopped on to do the interview, and I would really love to take it back because, even when you say you were working in, first of all, I also have to say you do not look like you've been in the industry for 30 years. Everybody, like Laurel looks like she's 26, and she's like, yeah, but I've been a life coach for 30 years. I'm like, okay, so there's that. But but on the other side of this, even coming into working with the Native Americans, Aboriginals here in Canada, and still being able to lean into the spiritual side of this and being like, my body spirit, that is just, what else do you need to know? That comes from a space of already having a seed, that this was just watering. So can you kind of go back into where the seed was planted with you?
Well, I've been told I've been on this earth a very, 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 very long time. And not by, it's by spiritual beings coming to me and saying, oh, did you know? Oh, no, thanks. I'm not paying anybody. They just come up and say, did you know? Oh, so, and in all of my past lives, I have been a teacher / healer, specifically focusing on women. That's what I've been told. So this is just, so I don't even know where it started, where it came from. I don't know. I don't know all of the details of my past lives. And it's so nice to be able to sit here and talk about my past lives instead of, this current work, because certainly the research is showing that there are aspects of our DNA that come down through the mother's line. Mm-hmm. And I come down from a lot of very intuitive beings, my father's side, my mother's side. And I believe that anxiety and mental illness is somehow founded in our seeing and our sensing. And it's so overwhelming for us to be fully present. And so what we do is we manifest illness in our physical form, whether it's a panic attack, sweats, inability to swallow, all those beautiful symptoms that come from panic disorder or an anxiety attack. I firmly believe that we are feelers and we sense things so profoundly, and not just what's happening in the space now, but we bring it forward.
Yes.
We have all that historical data that comes with us, you know, and we're talking like Akashic records and things like of that nature, which I know nothing about, but I'm really interested in it. So that's my next sort of what I'm going to tumble into, is take a look at that and see how what's going on.
Well, you know, and people know this about me too, and this is why I was so excited about this conversation, not knowing why, but like, to me, spiritual gifts and mental illness is two sides of the same coin. But in our, you know, Western culture, we don't have the mentors and the leaders and the supports and, you know, the shamans and the, you know, councils and all of these spiritual advisors that they had in Eastern cultures, that like, as soon as you start to exhibit the signs of your gift, that offer you the support and the love and, you know, the clarity that you're looking for, and say, you know, you are doing incredible. Let's foster this incredible aspect of your being and enhance it and amplify it so that you can be in service with this, right? Over here, it's like, part of me, you're seeing something, part of me, you're hearing something, part of me, what did you know? How did you know that? Where did that come from? And fear sets in. And fear sets in from the level of the adult who is, you know, in the, like, I don't even know how many times when I was young, we would hear these things and say something, and the adults would come back and say, well, that didn't happen, or something's wrong with you, or, you know, we need to take you somewhere to have you checked out. Like, I've been in therapy since I was, I don't know, 10.
You know, when we didn't have therapy, that's how old I am. There was no such thing. You know, we looked at the physical symptoms, and is the kid doing well in school? Great. Okay, bye. You know, bye. There's nothing going on with her. She's doing great. You know, there's a great book. So I come from a very uber brilliant family. My brother is like IQ genius, the little one. My older brother is very much, he's almost like he used to make proclamations when he was little, like 2. And use these words that, you know, nobody could understand. But I didn't feel like I was connected that way. And there's a fabulous book, if I may pull it off my bookshelf.
Always.
Mellow Out, If I Only Could, Intensities and Sensitivities of the Young and Bright by Dr. Michael Pachowski. This fella studied gifted kids. Guess what's mentioned in here a lot?
What?
Intuitive children.
Boom.
This guy studied intelligence and kids who were gifted, and actually writes about kids, research-based, because that's what I was looking for, because parents were reaching out to me and saying, my kid sees dead people. I don't know what to do.
Right.
My kid is overwhelmed because they said that there's a boy following them to school, but we don't see them. There's another one where a young lady was being visited by someone she thought was green and icky in her classroom. So that's what we're talking about, those types of kids. And I thought, well, where the heck's the research in that? So this guy actually studied it. I wrote to him, and he said to me, you must continue the work that you're doing with these children. And so at the time I was working with kids, and now I don't work directly with children because I feel that the children are okay. But I think the parents and the adults in the space need more of the support to understand how to support a child that's exhibiting whatever they're exhibiting.
Well, and I think that and I would love to have a little conversation about this, because, you know, if the parent is not intuitive and doesn't understand intuition fully, I mean, we're all intuitive. I'm not saying that we're all intuitive. Like, I want to make that clear. But if they're not awakened into their intuition, or, you know, fostering it or being open to it, and they have a child who's beginning to show symptoms and signs of their intuition blossoming and blooming, I mean, it is kudos to the parent who reaches out to you. Instead of saying, child, something's wrong with you, they're saying, please help me. I don't know what to do with my child who has these incredible gifts.
And it's funny because it's never public. I used to get direct messages through Twitter, private messages through Facebook. And when I talk to the parent about the child and I ask, who in your family's intuitive? Oh, well, I guess I was. Oh. Was? Well, this is what I experienced. Aha. Was it frightening for you? Yes. Did your parent or guardian understand how to support you? No. So what's happening is your childhood fear is bubbling up to the surface because of how your parent or guardian responded to you. And so now you know how it feels. So let's work with that. Let's start there.
So now you're going to the parent to foster the service right at the beginning of their moment where their intuition was.
Yeah, because we all know about inner child work. And, with my mother's passing, something hilarious has happened. Well, it's not hilarious. The situation was not hilarious, but the hilarious part was all my coping mechanisms went out the window. And I went, what is wrong with me? And I have a great counselor I make her laugh all the time. She's like, dude. Well, she probably didn't say dude. I always say that, dude, what are you doing, man? She's like, what? You realize, of course, your coping strategies when you've had a traumatic situation fly right out the window and you go right back to childhood coping strategies. I was like, what? What are you talking about? Seriously? She goes, yes. You're processing these huge feelings. Of course, you're going to go back to those coping mechanisms. Give yourself a break. I was like, okay. So I started biting my nails. Biting my nails. That was something I did when I was a kid. I started developing eczema on the insides of my elbows. I went, what's that about? Yeah, it's trauma. Yeah, it's trauma. By the way, have I mentioned you used to do that when you were a kid? So I'm having all these funny internal dialogues about this, and I know my mother's still around, so she's probably like stroking her beard of wisdom and going, right on, sister. Yeah, way to awaken.
I have to ask a question that I'm sitting here and I'm being so patient because everybody right before we got on, Laurel was like, when I was 2 to 4 years old, I had my first spiritual experience. And I'm like, with bated breath, I've been like, when do I interject that question? When do I get to ask about that experience that you had? And then I'd love for you to share how you had anxiety as a kid.
Sure. So between the ages of 2 and 4, I lived in a home in Niagara Falls. And I had 2 male visitors. They were dressed as soldiers. One was very tall and did all the talking and stood at the front. And one was in the back, sort of looking and nodding, but didn't speak. I understood my names for them. And I was attending a conference years later. So I talked about it a little bit. My best friend from kindergarten, who we still hang out, we met when she was 4 and I was 5. She knew what was going on. My husband knew what was going on. He didn't know I was intuitive. He just knew that story. My parents thought it was cute. And they used to say, oh yeah, she's talking. Because I'd be out in the backyard by myself while my mom was dealing with my baby brother. And I'd be yakking away to these 2 soldiers. They came every day to tell me that they loved me and they were there to take care of me. I'm like, okay. That's the first memory I have of somebody saying, I love you and I'm here to take care of you, by 2 dead people. That's my favorite story to share. Amazing. It was not frightening. It was not scary. They were so kind. And I remember the first soldier, I know now their names were William and John. John would bend down, like right down, and look at me and talk to me right in the eyes. And it was never scary. It was never frightening. It was so it was so loving, and I was just embraced by these 2 fellas. I think William at the back probably suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and couldn't speak. I've had several people come to me and say, do you realize you have 2 soldiers? Yes. One's on the left and one's on the right? Yes. Do you know their names are Will and John? Yes. Okay.
But it's from the level of the human experience, it's nice to get that validation.
I tell you, random strangers. And how I figured out my people, I went to a conference and someone was speaking and it was totally irrelevant to anything. And they said, if you really want to know who your angel guardian people are, ask the question before you fall asleep at night. In the morning you wake up and you'll know the answers. And that's how I got it.
That's fascinating.
So it was really, really, really interesting to think about this, like to take that and to okay, so I've got this content now. And then I sat and I reflected on how difficult life was for me at public school when I first went there. I didn't talk a lot. The funny thing is, all my report cards, probably from kindergarten, because we didn't have junior kindergarten, all the way through till grade 3 or 4, said, Laurel has a beautiful singing voice. We just wish she would speak up in class. And it's funny, a music therapist friend and we collaborated on a project together, and her report cards said the exact same thing. I truly believe that I was to not speak and to observe for a couple of reasons. One is everybody brought their people with them to class. And I think that it was really busy. It was really busy in those formative years to have not only the teachers' people there, each of the students' people there, my people there, and then the people that are attached to the school. I think we had a crowded house. And I think it was a little overwhelming energetically. Plus, I could observe and I could see who was struggling and who wasn't. I spent the first part of kindergarten in the bathroom crying, like weeping. It was awful. That's where my mental health, I went, oh, look at my mental health right there. That was a little bit of a breakdown. Mm-hmm. I eventually grew out of that, and I had a brilliant kindergarten teacher that introduced me to my best friend from kindergarten. And she had similar experiences. I'm sure our teacher didn't know that. But we're kind of the same personalities, although I'm a bit more vivacious and bubbly and out there. But we started off together on this journey of life during our formative years, really being connected. And she gets visited by her grandfathers all the time. So we had that connection, but we didn't know until adulthood that we had that same connection. Wow. And she started to share that. So how does it, I can't remember the second part of the question.
Well, because was this, do you think, the reason for the anxiety that you had as a kid?
I believe so. And also the feeling of being different. In our culture, it is important to be the same. We encourage people to have the same ambitions. You go to school, public school, or maybe a private school. You get your education, you graduate, you go to post-secondary education, you find a job, you get involved in a relationship, a marriage, whatever partnership, you buy a house, you have your cars, you have your children, you live, you work to live, mm-hmm. not live to work, and then you die.
Yep.
And it is a very North American, very prescriptive, you work hard, you get money, it's about affluence. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, we neglect the spiritual parts of ourselves. And when we neglect the spiritual parts of ourselves, because there's 3 parts to us. There's our brain, which is intelligence, mental health, everything to do with our brain. There's our physical well-being, which people are always focused on the physical wellness. Am I eating the right foods? Am I weighing the right weight? Am I disease free? That's usually where people look to see and gauge how well they are. They're not really looking at their mental health or taking care of their brain. I talk to kids a lot about taking care of their brains. How do you nourish your brain? We're not taught that. We're taught how to take care of our physical selves, but we're not taught how to take care of the brain. And then we come to the spiritual sense of self. And to me, that's all tied into self-esteem, self-worth. So if you show up on this planet as the beautiful soul that you are, and your parental units and all those centers of influence from the adult realm are able to facilitate your development, give you experiences that are important to you, that child will naturally not have as many fears, worries, concerns, and becomes more resilient. And that's a hot topic right now, is resiliency in childhood. So it starts actually in utero. The less stressed a mother is during her pregnancy, the less likely her child will develop a mental health situation. Infant mental health is something I'm really passionate about. It starts right at conception. And so if mother is given the strategies to support mind, body, and spirit while bringing this child into the world, we know that her cortisol levels will be down. We know that the good hormones will be going through her body. And let's face it, if you look at, do you have children?
Yeah, I have 2 of mine and 2 stepchildren. I'm a 4-pack.
So think about your first child. Think about when you were pregnant with your first child.
I was 19, so this is one.
So you're like, oh yeah, sister. I attended that conference. I looked at my colleague. She looked at me and went, well, we really screwed things up, didn't we? Yes, we did.
I listened to Enya every night as I was falling asleep, Laura. Was that not good enough? That was like, calming music.
But, this is, and, in many cultures, when a woman is pregnant, she is nourished and cared for and loved because of the importance of what's incubating inside. And when she gives birth, there are 1,000 women from the tribe coming to take care of that baby so mom can get the rest she needs. We say, okay, work right up until your due date. Yep, take a year off. But by the way, don't forget, you got to focus on these things, and you better make sure you got your job when you're done, because somebody could have come along and taken it. And by the way, have you paid your mortgage, and have you got your second car, and have you bought all the accoutrement that you need to support that baby, like the right crib, the right stroller? Are you in the right mommy's groups? What are you doing? Oh, and here's 73,000 parenting books. Read all of them. That's
just overwhelmed me so badly.
And that's where we are.
I know.
We're in a state of overwhelm. We are in a state of acquisition. And, after watching how quickly my mother passed, I'm like, oh man, I have got to change things up. So I had my very dear friend pass in January, and my mother passed in May of this year. And both of them were amazing advocates for the work that I'm doing. And so I looked at that. They're always in my headspace. Do what's right for you. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out. And when an adult has fear of missing out, that translates exactly to the child. So the child grows up with instant gratification. And I'm not saying deny things to children, but think about when you worked really hard for something, the sense of accomplishment that you had in achieving that when you were a kid. So what we've got now is we've got parents that are operating out of fear, and so they're doing the work for their child. There's so much in this. Like there's so many systemic things going on and so many cultural things going on. We just need to stop it all and really take stock of where we are as a center of influence in our child's life. And I've heard children tell me all sorts of things, as young as 5, as young as 3, tell me things that are going on in the household that make a little bit of red flags pop up. And so that's the
Red
reason.
flags how? Because I'm confused as to 3 to 5
Well,
year old they're having.
well, so let's think about a toddler. When a toddler is wants something, what do?
They yell, cry, have a tantrum, lie on the ground.
Right. They are able to express themselves. I'm often told that once they get past, like, so you're appeasing the toddler, but as they transition into school, all of a sudden, and whether that's a preschool or a daycare or a school, there are rigid rules. And so those rigid rules, when a child has gone from being like, I want this, I want that, I don't like that food, I'm hungry, I have to pee, or whatever a toddler says, whatever their language is at that age. And then we start to, okay, snap out of it, sit in a circle, be quiet, hands to yourself, don't talk, no hugging, no physical contact. So we go from this real sense of solid self, and then all of a sudden we put them into a space where they're no longer allowed to be them.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the expectations of that child. Be like everybody else in this space. Yep, do a little art. Yep, do a little running around. But there's not that level, and I'm totally generalizing here because there are some fabulous teachers out there and some fabulous organizations that are doing a bang up job on this.
Agreed.
Right? So, but that's historically how we've set up our systems to support children. And the reason we have public school started with the Industrial Revolution. And so businesses wanted their workers to be able to read and do basic math. And that's how school started. So it started because the Industrial Revolution said, all right, we got to train these people from a very early age how to be great workers. And we left behind, giving children things to do that are, that maybe promote adult skills.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you would help out with the farm, you would be up at 5, you would be working with mama, or you would be working with papa, and you would be doing whatever that was, and we've lost that. We've lost all of that sort of cultural identity because we're supposed to be like everybody else.
Which brings me to my next question, because clearly you were not like everybody else, Laurel, because there would, like, for me to hear you say, like, people would come up to you or parents would send you messages saying my child is seeing things. Clearly you've always been very open about your spirituality and your gifts in order for them to know you're the person to help solve their problem.
Yes and no. Sometimes I just stand there and people come up and they tell me everything.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody once told me, a medium, that I'm able to manipulate my energy based on the person that's standing in the room. She said, your energy is so massive, you don't even know how massive it is. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means. I kind of do, but I don't. But she says, you naturally do this. You don't know you're doing it. You manipulate it to be in safe for people who may not feel safe. So I think there's that element of spirituality that a lot of people that we know are able to do that, and why that people feel they can come up and talk to us. It's funny, now animals are coming to me. Dogs will stop and wait for me to come up so that I will pet them and acknowledge them. Children do the same thing. Squirrels do that. I don't understand what's happening with squirrels, but I think it's the fairy thing, right?
Totally.
But it's just interesting. It's just interesting.
You never shrouded that part of you. You never dimmed it, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you had these experiences as a kid. You held yourself true to who you were through that experience. Like, how many of us, like me included, shut off our spiritual gifts, shut off our intuition in order to socialize or become one with society? I personally drank to numb my gifts, because that made it so that I could be in public and I could function ish in the world.
I know a lot of people who, it's fascinating. I watch the show Intervention, and most of the people that are serious addicts, whatever their poison of choice is, and they started off being uber brilliant, uber sensitive, and then something traumatic happens, and then they just turn to addiction. I know several addicts that I've met throughout my life who say it's the same thing. It's so overwhelming to be in a space with other people, and to sense all their sorrows and joy and pain. It's just physically, mindfully, spiritually overwhelming for them to be in a space. And I've taught children how to do something. I taught them how to change this, because everybody's talking about, protect yourself, going in, whoosh, white light yourself to the up the yin yang. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, I don't do that. So I want you to imagine you have a yellow light shooting out of your belly button. A yellow light. I'm
like a Care Bear from my belly button.
Yeah, okay. So it's your belly button, so here I have my beautiful citrine. It's also my ring. And I say, I show them this, and then imagine that you're shooting out loving yellow light. Because the citrine's all about self-esteem and self-worth. Mm-hmm. And just shoot out love and shoot out your self-worth. The people who want to come in and infiltrate into your space won't come anymore. They just fall off because you're so powerful as you. When you think of protecting yourself, it's a negative vantage. It's from a negative perspective, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. When you're shooting love out everywhere, the right people get deposited into your space. Teachers, elders, healers, support people who help you grow your business. Opportunities come your way without having to work for it. Like this opportunity. It is magic.
Yes.
The magic of the universe.
Yes.
It's also fairies connecting, so that's a whole other
I know, I can't, if anybody's watching this video, I can't stop smiling in Laurel's energy, because two fairies come together. And I feel like we've known each other for eons.
I'm sure.
Connected.
And I want to share a little story that I have my designation in adult education. And one of our teachers asked us to do a little meditation visualization about our future teaching practice. Okay, so everybody's, she's guiding us through, and then we pop up. We all pop our eyes open. So people are talking, it's going to have couches and soft lighting and la, la, la. And then they came to me. I said, I'm an elderly woman sitting on a porch. I'm surrounded by children from the community, from the neighborhood, who just stop by and ask for my advisement. And it's very cozy, and I've got children on my lap, and I've got teenagers, I've got little kids, and they just come and hang out with me. And then I looked around the room, and people are like, what the hell was that? And one of the women raised her hand and was like, can I change my vision? Because a classroom's everywhere.
Yes. Sure.
Everything you need. If you put your hand next to your nose, I don't know if you want to do this, put your hand next to your nose. That's how close everything is you need to support whatever you want. But most times we're trying to look around around it. We're trying to look over it. We're in the future. We're in the past. Crap, the past. The future. It's right here.
Did Corey ever say you and I are very similar people when you were talking to her?
I just met Corey.
I know. No. But I'm it's just super fun. I'm just having a really good time with you, Laurel. But here's kind of like I want to tie into the bow that I know that you realize that it's the adults now who are the guiders and the mentors and the teachers of these intuitive kids. Like this is now our work in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Is the activation and the honoring of these little humans.
Mm-hmm. Is there a question with that?
Well, because I'm like, in terms of, is that where you're at? Like more information from that level? Because I know that there are parents that are listening right now who are like, oh my God, I have a little child who's saying these things and I don't know what to do.
Well, the first thing is just to acknowledge, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Second thing is, how does that make you feel? All right, do you feel special? Different? I mean, and you would use different words for how young they are. Do you think you need to talk to somebody about that? Or do you feel okay? Is there anything I can do to better support you or to support you? And that's it. That's it.
You know, but we're so funny as adults because I know some of the listeners are going to be like, but I don't know if that's it. Like, how do I know? And that's like, am I doing this right? And am I doing this wrong? Like in terms of, I know that that's a great starting place, but they can reach out to you, Laurel, right? If
they can for sure. You know, so I've created these children's wellness conferences that focus on mind, body, and spirit. And they're not for children, they're about children.
Gotcha.
They are for parents, they are for educators, they are for therapists, because one of the issues that I see, and I was at a conference this past weekend that was academia based, is the missing elements of academia coming together with spiritual. I am that bridge. That is my gift. My job on this earth is to build a community of experts that are able to support kids in different ways. Kids do not come with prescriptions. What worked for you as a child in the support does not any way reflect what your child needs. Your fears and worries are not your child's fears and worries. They're based upon your historical information and how you were raised. So I think that's very clear. So really getting in tune with your child has got to be the first step, because as parents, we want to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't need to fix, because the minute you try and fix or interject with a support person, the child automatically assumes there's something wrong with them. Mm-hmm. We don't want them to think there's something wrong with them. We want them to come to us and say, you know what, with any situation, Mom, I want to try drugs. Mom, somebody offered me a weed cigarette. You know, a weed cigarette. What's that called? A joint. You know, or, you know, because we have to start earlier in life so that we can open the portal of conversations with our children. And sometimes we're so busy giving directions to our kids that we're not listening to them. We're not observing them. And the only way you can observe them and really see how well they're doing is by being quiet.
Which is interesting, because I'm at the level with 14-year-olds who do share everything with me. And sometimes I'm just like, oh, Lord, that's serious. Like, these are things going on, like, you know, that there's cocaine in the bathroom at school and, you know, what's going on. And I'm just like, I receive with them.
Right.
But I'm not really sure what to do with this information I've received with them. I mean, we have a conversation about it.
Right. And that's great. And that's all they need. What they're doing is they are offloading these potentially chaotic situations and questioning situations, because it doesn't get easier as they move into adulthood. The situations just get more complicated and complex and become adult focused. So what you've done is you've given them a beautiful platform to be able to open up and share content with you about, hey, this is going on at school. And again, you can ask the question, is there anything that you need from me to better support you in this? They may say, nah, I just need to talk to you. Okay, perfect. Your job is done.
Perfect. Love it, Laurel, love it. And if people want to either learn more about this conference that you are creating, like how to get there, how to participate in it, but also if anyone's listening who is like, oh my goodness, I feel like I can support Laurel in some other ways, where would they find that information?
They can go to, excuse me, they can go to Laurel, like laurelcrossley.com. All my information is up there. There's some stuff articles I've written and stuff. Please excuse the website because I've got a back end website that's just sitting there percolating, and I'm not sure yet how I'm going to focus this. So I'm working on a couple of things back end. But the website's there and all the content's there. There are links to the Children's Wellness Conference. There's one happening in Halton, and I actually approached Corey about doing one in Niagara. I want to do one maybe closer to Fort Erie so that I can tap into cross-border, and we will be looking for exhibitors and participants and things like that. So that's a work in progress. And I've got one that's going to be happening in Windsor. So September 26th. I have to look at the date. I keep getting it mixed up. September 26th is here in Burlington, in Halton.
Hey, September 26th is already passed in 2019.
2020.
Okay, 2020. And like you said this year, I'm like, Laurel, that's not possible. We are past that date. So 2020.
2020. And then the one in Windsor will happen in October, but I have to solidify the location today. And then I don't know when the Fort Erie-ish one, Niagara-ish one. And
like, I want to participate in
perfect.
The Fort Erie one, yeah.
Because what we're doing is it's a series of workshops so exhibitors, purchase a space, and then we give them a workshop opportunity, which is fantastic. So it drives traffic to them. We're looking for people who support not only children's wellness, but also the adults that are in the space. And that's really important. And we're looking for products and services and things that are really different. I do the keynote because I set the tone for the conference. And then basically we run around in the forest and we play as adults. And we know how important play is in our own wellness. So not only are we participating in content-driven workshops, we're also doing a lot of creative and fun activities in the form of like a recess kind of thing as well. So it's really neat. It's a different type of conference. You come dressed like in your yoga pants and, sweatshirt, and you run around. Makeup, no makeup, and yet it's still a conference.
I love it. I'm already so in.
Okay.
So much more about this
later.
I know. Yay. So then the next piece of this is the question that I always ask selfishly is, and it doesn't have to be the one you already talked about, but it can only be one. What is the book that had the most transformative experience for you? Is it the one you talked about? Yeah.
I cried. And I went, oh my God, I'm in this book. Oh, there are others. Right.
Right.
Because I thought I was unique. No, not quite. Well, maybe just a little.
You are unique. Oh, Laura, I'm so glad Corey met you and said, you guys need to do this because it's all happened very quickly and I can see why. And I'm so excited to expand into this.
Thank you. Thank you for the beautiful opportunity.
Of course. It's called Own Your Intuitive. And sister, you have owned your intuitive.
Look out. I don't know what's going to happen now. Fairies.
For me, divine. So like what's coming?
Whipping around and dancing a jig and doing all sorts of things. We got gnomes, fairies, squirrels, chipmunks, puppies, kittens. I don't know what's happening.
I don't even think you're watching the video. I have my stuffy that I use with my clients right over here. You've got like things on your shelf or like big kids in human bodies doing big work. And I'm excited to connect with you. Thank you again. And thank you for everybody that is listening. Go to laurelcrossley.com.
Yes.
To find out more information. And I look forward to bringing another human into your perception next week. Have a magical day. If you've been listening to the Own Your Intuitive podcast and you know you are ready to step into your stardust and to shine your light out into this world, but you don't know what your Stardust is and you don't know how to bust through your blocks, I would love to jump on a call to find out if the Chakra Business Academy is the perfect place for you to grow into your lightworker self, to step into this world as a spiritual entrepreneur, making a difference and making an impact. If you're interested, you can go to tamaraarnold.ca/application and we'll be on a call in no time, and you'll be taking steps into stepping into your Stardust and making an impact in the world with the exact purpose that you were put on this earth to do.